It's good to be here on a day that so far highlighted a lot of the importance and changing aspects of transport delivery and a lot of exciting developments. It was back in October that David Quarmby invited me to come along to this conference. I know he's helped to organise this event. And given the scale and importance of the local highway networks and the wide responsibilities of transport planning, I thought it was important that there was a local authority perspective on issues. Little did I know that back then, some 4 months on, there'll be a lot of changes. And today I'm going to give you a perspective, as quickly as I can, on the challenges of resource and delivery, but also give an outlook on future prospects. Just a quick thing about ADEPT. ADEPT is a well-respected voice of local authority directors, Association of Directors of Economy, Environment, Planning and Transport, and provides a very useful conduit through government for many issues that they may want to consult us on. I'm chair of the Transport Board, as Sue has said, and in my spare time I do look after all these services in Derbyshire. For good measure, I've also been given responsibility for libraries, trading standards, community safety and emergency planning, and I've got a back phone. Just about the transport delivery, a changing picture, I'd like to give an overview of how transport delivery and funding is shaping up nationally, regionally and locally, and what challenges and opportunities lie ahead. From a national point of view, it may be argued that following the Brown Review on Network Rail project delivery and the road investment strategies for Highways England, we may be heading through the National Infrastructure Commission towards the Holy Grail, a national infrastructure and transport strategy. Maybe. I know earlier on today there was some talk about the money being put into Highways England nationally, £6.2 billion of highway maintenance for Highways England and 5.82 billion for local authority networks. But if you work that out per mile, that's 1.4 million pounds per mile for Highways Agency, Highways England roads, beg your pardon, and 31,000 pounds per mile for local authority roads. I'm not bitter, but there are some issues about the distribution of funding. It said, whilst there are some, it looks as though there's some degree of alignment on the delivery of projects, transport projects nationally, subnationally and locally, the picture is far from clear, which gives rise to a great deal of uncertainty. To give a sense of realism to the challenges and changing picture, I thought it might be useful just to give a quick overview of what's going on in my neck of the woods. It's not exceptional in Derbyshire and is echoed. I know we've got colleagues here today from Oxfordshire, Hampshire and Essex, and a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are happening in those areas. And it's making the key point is a number of different bodies that now potentially could be involved in decision making on transport investment and the challenge that creates. Derbyshire, 750,000 population, 3,500 miles of road, a good and well-regarded local transport plan, and good delivery of road safety, mature road safety partnership, and a highways asset management plan I'm hoping will be well thought of by the assessment process. We launched a cycle plan, but the challenges are that revenue budget cuts in transport are, well, they're not cuts, they're slashes actually. Since 2010, with my responsibility, unfortunately, I've had to take £20 million worth of cuts out of public transport and highways maintenance. Now that is massive compared to the effect that potentially that could have on resource. £13 million out of the highways maintenance budget and 6.5 out of public transport, currently held up by reserves, by the way, is not going to last. We will have to look at alternative delivery mechanisms. Now, there will be plans in the future, and we're working on 5-year plans up to 2021. And there's a further £20 million I've got to find out of my budgets, largely out of those particular services, to deliver the financial plans that are being put upon us to deliver by that time. Effectively, local government, and my council in particular, had to take a third out of its budget since 2010. That's 278 million. So there are some real challenges on resource, and the point I would make here today, more for the audience, is that there's going to be big challenges on skills and resource, particularly in the public transport and the transport sector. Big challenges, and it's a matter of how we address those challenges. Turning to the LEP picture, there are 39 LEPs, of course, all emerging from the Michael Heseltine No Stone Unturned report. LEPs are relevant because they hold local growth funds, and the Derbyshire-Nottinghamshire D2N2 LEP has a target 55,000 jobs and 70,000 new houses. Received £202 million out of the growth funds, which is good, and significant sums of DFT money were put into those local growth funds. The issue about the LEPs are, of course, it's all about growth, and there is very, very short timescales. I'm not being necessarily critical here, but the way it works is that we are given very short timescales to put bids together to be able to put a case to government for apportionment of the overall local growth funds. There are manic sessions on how we're going to put these bids together. They go in, and then there's some mysterious way in which the money is allocated to LEPs. Then we start the assessment process and we start delivery. But the whole point about it is being picked up by Steve Gooding today. It's not necessarily about keeping the networks in good condition. It's more about growth, and it's a challenge for us to be able to develop proposals to maintain the existing, and I think that's a key issue. Good news about D2N2 is that we have one of the few LEPs to receive funding for local sustainable transport funds. Gets a little bit more complicated because there are two LEPs covering Derbyshire. If you look at the picture there, you'll see the blue area and the blue hatched area. There's an overlapping LEP, and that's Sheffield City Region and the D2N2 LEP. So two LEPs, two growth deals, and two separate processes to deliver single projects, or agreement between us on how we're going to deliver that. It looks complicated. There needs to be understanding between the two LEPs on what funding and working in overlapped areas, but it is double the work for me. That is one of the issues. Now we add to the complications. This is one of my favourite, most recent acts. With the changes by the Cities and Local Government Devolution Act, combined authorities, or mayoral combined authorities, could take on responsibility for delivery of some key transport services. So there's a whole new world of combined authorities out there. For example, a mayor or a combined authority can have responsibility for the management and maintenance of a key route network. And I'm sure David Gormby's been mentioning some of that today. Production of a single transport plan and a single asset management plans for the area. Responsibility for a consolidated transport capital budget. And bear in mind, capital is the only thing that's in town nowadays, and thanks to DFT we've still got some assurity of that, but this is all going to be held by the combined authority potentially through consolidated pots or a mayor. And a requirement for collaborative working across the highway authority. Now I've been involved with devolution deal discussions, and a clear message coming from me between the lines is, have we got too many highway authorities across the country? Question. Secondly, and more worryingly, the Act allows district councils to take transport powers away from transport authorities, even though they're not in a contiguous authority, to a neighbouring combined authority. That was a late amendment of the devolution bill. With it goes funding, public transport coordination and delivery in that area. In Derbyshire, the Sheffield City region is a well-established ITA, was previously PTE, and it doesn't help with any certainty of planning. There are uncertain budgets and priorities. And this is one of the problems that we're going to have to wrestle with, I think, over the forthcoming months. Within the Devolution Act, and I think this is a good thing, the government has allowed for the creation of subnational transport bodies, which have legal status and could hold transport powers. For example, the production of a subnational transport strategy, and can provide specific advice to the Minister on our priorities. These bodies could hold Highways England and Network Rail to account and provide valuable guidance to bodies such as HS2. These bodies could deliver exciting transport projects which are beyond the LEP combined authority scale. They could also facilitate multi-LEP transport projects such as smart ticketing and rail franchising, and it could also feed into the National Infrastructure Commission. We sit in Derbyshire, arguably in the sort of northern fringes of Midlands Connect, which has got some recognition, and Transport for the North, which is, I agree, much more advanced in terms of its work. And having met both chairs of the Transport for the North and Midlands Connect, there's no shortage of ambition for these bodies that I think will inevitably be formed as part of the new legislation. And I think the challenge really across the country is that other areas need to get themselves into the same sort of position to be able to provide this, this sort of longer-term multi-LEP, multi-CA approach. So the challenges, probably guessed it, keeping track of who's responsible for what. Across the country, the local government news is continually filled with bids on unitarisation, devolution, mayoral arrangements. There's going to be a loss of focus on delivery. everybody's going to be fussing about governance. I believe the Cities and Local Government Devolution Act is the genesis for local government reorganisation at the strategic level. Mayoral arrangements are uncharted territory and may present risk to traditional funding allocations. Government's propensity for short-term bidding competitions will be feeding into that, and less said about those sort of things, the better. There will be a scarcity of resource and skills. You can't spend capital on resource issues. You need to develop projects with resource and skills before you can put them into a capital programme. Early scheme preparation could be put at risk because of the revenue cuts, and this argument about revenue and capital we need to think through. I think subnational transport bodies are starting to take on roles, and I think that's really good. But it's understanding within all this process the broader objectives of transport through growth and housing, but also making sure we maintain and manage what we've got in a proper fashion. Alongside all this, and I'm sure this will be interesting to some private sector organisations and people here today, there will be some issues about supply chain and pipeline of projects. These all need to be thought through and how they're going to be managed in the future. Quite challenging times. So the opportunities. I think it's a really good thing that the National Infrastructure Commission has been formed. Government's commitment of 100 billion by 2020 to developing infrastructure with a great deal of emphasis on transport. There's northern connectivity issues that I've touched upon. It's good that local and subnational decisions are made on transport. I think devolution in principle is good. So the opportunities are really good on that. But delivery of harder to do projects or larger can be delivered through strategic transport, subnational transport boards, and new funding models could be realised as a consequence of those models. So LEPs together with investment funds could actually, through private sector investment, deliver some really exciting pan-LEP, SDB projects. And the Transpennine Tunnel is probably a good example of that. In transport for the north, they are thinking larger than just DFT funding. It's something that may stretch from one side of the coast to the other. So there's a real opportunity. So in spite of massive pressures on revenue budgets, it's good that there is a long-term commitment to the local growth fund and there's long-term commitment to transport investment. Hopefully, just to finalise, I've highlighted some of the issues in a very quick way that are facing transport and local transport delivery. But you appreciate there's a lot of uncertainty. But to quote, the future is uncertain, but this uncertainty is the heart of human creativity. Thank you.